We all know that voice, don't we? That inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
The one that jumps in the second we, stumble or feel like we didn't quite measure up. It's, it, well, it's almost automatic for so many people.
It really is. But what if there's another way? What if, instead of that harshness, we could offer ourselves, well, a bit an understanding,
Yeah,
maybe some kindness?
exactly. And that's really what we're diving into today. Self-compassion.
Right. It's a pretty fundamental shift, thinking about how we relate to ourselves, learning to give ourselves that same support we'd naturally offer a friend who's struggling.
Precisely. And our goal here really is to get under the skin of self-compassion. We're going to lean on psychological research, especially the work of Dr. Kristen Neff. She's a real pioneer here.
Yeah, she really laid the groundwork.
To not just define it, but more importantly, figure out how you can actually, build it. How can you cultivate it as a skill, something tangible?
Absolutely. So we'll unpack the three core parts of self-compassion. We'll look at the benefits, and honestly, some are quite surprising for your mental health, your emotional state.
And how it's different from self-esteem, right? That's a big one.
A very big one, crucial difference. We'll tackle some common myths, those things that might make you hesitant, and then, get into practical ways you can actually bring more self-compassion into your daily life.
Okay, sounds good. So this isn't just a vague, be nice to yourself idea. It has these three core components. Let's start with the first one. Self-kindness versus self-judgment.
Right. At its heart, this is about actively choosing to be warm and supportive towards yourself when things are tough.
Instead of the usual criticism.
Exactly. Instead of that immediate, harsh self-critique, it's deciding to offer comfort. Asking yourself, okay, what would I genuinely say or do for a friend right now? And then trying to turn that inwards.
It's interesting how automatic the self-criticism is, but for a friend, kindness is just natural.
It is, isn't it? This first pillar is about consciously trying to apply that same kindness to ourselves.
And there's a biological element, too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating, actually. Self-criticism tends to activate our threat system. Fight or flight stirs hormones.
Right, that tense feeling.
Yeah. But self-kindness, deliberately practicing it, taps into what researchers call the mammalian caregiving system. It's linked with oxytocin, calming the nervous system.
So it actually promotes calm physiologically.
Exactly. Feelings of safety, connection, soothing. It's really about accepting that, well, being imperfect and facing difficulty isn't some personal failing. It's just part of being human. It doesn't need punishment.
That physiological piece really drives home the impact. It's not just in your head. Okay, so the second pillar. Common humanity versus isolation. This feels like a big perspective shift.
It really is. Common humanity is this understanding that your suffering, your feelings of inadequacy, they aren't just yours. They're shared.
You're not the only one feeling this way.
Precisely. Research shows that feeling of I'm the only one is incredibly common when we struggle. It's isolating.
Yeah, that sense of being totally alone in your failure or pain.
Common humanity is the antidote to that. It's consciously reminding yourself, okay, this is difficult and it's something many people experience, or this is just part of the human condition.
It connects you back.
It connects you back. It fosters this sense of, okay, I'm part of this larger tapestry of human experience, flaws and struggles included. Studies show simply acknowledging this shared reality can really lessen feelings of loneliness when things are hard.
And that's quite different from self-pity, isn't it? Because self-pity can feel very inward-looking, very focused on my unique misfortune.
That's a key distinction. Self-pity often involves that sense of isolation. Why me? Common humanity helps you see your struggles in a broader context. It acknowledges the shared vulnerability we all have. It prevents you from getting stuck in that feeling of being uniquely hard done by.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the third pillar, mindfulness versus over-identification. We hear mindfulness a lot these days. How does it fit specifically with self-compassion?
Right. So in this context, mindfulness means taking a balanced approach to your difficult thoughts and feelings.
Balanced how?
Balanced in the sense of observing them without judgment, seeing them clearly as they are in this moment, but without either trying to push them away or getting completely swept up in exaggerating them.
So, like acknowledging the feeling without becoming the feeling.
Exactly. It's like approaching your inner world with a kind of gentle curiosity. Okay, this is what's here right now. This hurts. You allow yourself to feel it, but you don't let it completely define your reality in that moment.
You acknowledge the pain, which you need for compassion.
Yes, you have to acknowledge suffering to be compassionate towards it.
But you don't fuse with it. You don't lose all perspective.
Precisely. You maintain a little bit of space. You can see the storm clouds without believing you are the storm, as you said earlier. It provides emotional balance.
Okay, so these three things, self-kindness, common humanity, mindfulness, they work together.
Absolutely. They're interconnected, synergistic. Mindfulness lets you notice your suffering without being overwhelmed.
Okay.
Common humanity helps you contextualize it. I'm not alone in this. And self-kindness provides the caring response to yourself in that moment of suffering.
It really does paint a picture of a different way of relating to yourself. Moving away from being this object you're constantly judging
Yes,
towards being a subject who deserves understanding, just like you'd give to anyone else.
exactly that. A fundamental shift in the relationship.
Okay, so we understand the what. Let's talk about the why bother. What are the real, tangible benefits of cultivating this? Because it sounds like work.
It can be work initially, like building any new skill, but the payoff, according to a lot of research, is substantial. It impacts mental, emotional, even relational and physical well-being pretty significantly.
All right, let's unpack those benefits. What are we talking about here?
Well, first off, it's a major boost for emotional resilience and just general well-being. Study after study shows that people with higher self-compassion tend to experience less psychological distress.
Like less anxiety, depression.
Exactly. Less anxiety, depression, stress, less getting stuck in rumination, even less fear of failure. And on the flip side, more positive states, more happiness, optimism, life satisfaction, more curiosity, connection.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It is. And meta-analyses, where they combine data from lots of studies, they confirm that interventions designed to boost self-compassion actually work in improving these things.
That's compelling.
And importantly, unlike self-esteem, which we'll get into more, the sense of worth that comes from self-compassion is much more stable. It's not dependent on your latest success or failure.
Ah.
So it acts as a real buffer against stress. It helps people cope better with academic pressures, relationship problems, trauma, chronic pain, you name it. There's even research suggesting that going through stress while practicing self-compassion can be especially powerful for building that long-term resilience.
So it's not just about feeling better, it's about getting stronger through difficulty.
Hmm.
What about stress itself? Does it help manage day-to-day stress?
Definitely. Higher self-compassion is linked to lower perceived stress. And yes, programs teaching self-compassion have been shown to effectively reduce stress levels.
How does it do that?
Well, people who are more self-compassionate tend to use more adaptive coping strategies. They're more likely to try and solve the problem or seek support or reframe the situation positively or accept what they can't change. Instead of resorting to things like avoidance or just ruminating endlessly or beating themselves up, which often just makes stress worse. So it's a really effective emotion regulation strategy. It helps you be clear about what you're feeling and respond more helpfully.
Okay, now here's a big one for a lot of people, myself included. Does being kinder to yourself make you, well, lazy? Does it kill your motivation?
The motivation myth. It's probably the most common resistance people have.
Right, like if I'm not hard on myself, I'll just sit on the couch all day.
But the research points in the exact opposite direction. Self-compassion is actually a really powerful source of motivation, but it's a different kind of motivation.
How so?
It comes from a place of genuinely caring about your own well-being and wanting to learn and grow, rather than being driven by fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. Think about it. Wanting the best for yourself is often a much stronger, more sustainable motivator than constant self-criticism.
That makes sense. When I'm really critical of myself, honestly, it often just makes me want to give up. It feels paralyzing.
Exactly. Self-compassion reduces that fear of failure, so you're actually more willing to try things, to learn, to step outside your comfort zone. You're more likely to admit mistakes, learn from them, and keep going.
So it encourages a growth mindset.
Precisely. It's linked to a growth mindset and intrinsic motivation, wanting to improve for its own sake. Studies have even shown people put in more effort, like studying more after a setback, when they approach it with self-compassion. They can take responsibility without being crushed by shame.
So it's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about giving yourself the support needed to actually get back on the hook, maybe in a better way.
That's a great way to put it. And the benefits extend to relationships, too.
How does being kind to yourself affect how you relate to others?
Well, people high in self-compassion are generally seen by their partners as more caring, supportive, and accepting. It seems to nurture skills like empathy, forgiveness, tolerance.
Right.
It's also linked with more constructive ways of handling conflict, less aggression. And for caregivers, anyone looking after others, it's huge. It helps reduce their stress and burnout and actually increases the positive feelings they get from helping.
It sounds like being kinder to yourself allows you to be kinder and more present for others. A positive ripple effect.
Definitely. And you mentioned physical health earlier.
Yeah, is there a connection there?
The research is still growing, but it's pointing towards some interesting links. Self-compassion seems to be associated with healthier behaviors,
Hmm.
better diet, more exercise, seeking medical care when needed, less smoking, less putting off health stuff.
Huh. Why would that be?
Well, partly motivation caring for your well-being, but also remember the calming effect. Activating that self-soothing system might also boost immune function, improve sleep quality, potentially contributing to overall physical resilience.
So, wrapping up the benefits,
Yeah.
it really seems like self-compassion isn't just a nice to have. It's more like a fundamental psychological resource.
I think that's exactly right. It buffers against the bad stuff and actively helps you build positive internal resources to navigate life more effectively.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. You mentioned self-esteem a few times. For years, that was the gold standard, wasn't it? High self-esteem was the goal.
It absolutely was. For decades, the focus in psychology and popular culture, too, was heavily on building self-esteem as the key to happiness and success.
But you're saying self-compassion might be healthier, more stable.
Yes. While self-esteem isn't inherently bad, the pursuit of high self-esteem can have some significant downsides. Self-compassion offers a more reliable and ultimately kinder foundation for self-worth.
Okay, break down the core difference for us. What is self-esteem, fundamentally?
Fundamentally, self-esteem is an evaluation. It's a judgment you make about your own worthiness. Am I good enough? Am I competent? Am I valuable?
And that evaluation depends on.
Often it depends on how you perceive yourself, your talents, your looks, your successes, and crucially, how you think others see you. It's often based on external validation or meeting certain standards.
So it's conditional.
Exactly. That's a key problem. It's often contingent. It goes up when you succeed or get praise, and it plummets when you fail or feel criticized. It's inherently unstable.
Like riding a roller coaster based on your latest performance review or comment online.
Precisely. And because it often relies on feeling good about yourself, it frequently involves social comparison. Am I doing better than them?
Right, needing to feel superior.
Which can lead to competitiveness, envy, sometimes even prejudice. And research does link that fragile comparison-based self-esteem with narcissism. Plus, if your self-worth depends on always feeling good about yourself, you become very protective of that feeling. Ego defensiveness kicks in. You might struggle to admit mistakes, blame others, avoid challenges, anything to protect that fragile self-esteem.
Wow, okay, so those are some serious pitfalls. How does self-compassion sidestep those?
Because self-compassion isn't an evaluation at all. It's not about judging yourself as good or bad. It's a way of relating to yourself.
Relating how?
Relating with kindness, with that sense of common humanity, remembering everyone's struggles, and with mindful acceptance, especially when things are hard. It doesn't depend on you being special or better than others or always succeeding.
It's based on just being human.
Exactly. It's rooted in recognizing our shared human imperfection, and that makes all the difference.
So how does that play out differently?
Well, first, it's much more stable and unconditional. It's there for you precisely when self-esteem often deserts you, when you fail, when you feel inadequate.
Ah, okay, when you need it most.
Right. Second, it encourages learning from mistakes because your worth isn't on the line. You don't need to be defensive. Third, it fosters connection and empathy because it's based on shared experience, not comparison. And critically, research is very clear on this. Self-compassion shows no link to narcissism.
That makes sense. If your starting point is, we all mess up sometimes, there's no need to prop yourself up by feeling superior.
Exactly. It's an internally generated resource. It's about how you treat yourself, regardless of external circumstances. It's just more resilient. That focus on shared imperfection directly counters the drive for superiority that you see in narcissism.
Okay, that distinction is really clear and, frankly, quite compelling. But I still imagine people hearing this and having some resistance, some yeah buts. What are the big myths that stop people from embracing self-compassion?
Oh, definitely. There are several common ones, and they often come from understandable places, fears, cultural conditioning, or just misunderstanding what it really is. Probably the biggest one is confusing it with self-pity.
Yeah, I can see that. Like you're just supposed to wallow in your problems.
Right. But actually, self-compassion is the opposite of self-pity. Self-pity usually involves feeling isolated, poor me, I'm the only one, and getting stuck ruminating on how bad things are.
Okay.
Self-compassion, with its mindfulness and common humanity components, does the reverse. It helps you acknowledge the pain without getting lost in it, and it reminds you you're not alone. Remember, research shows self-compassionate people actually ruminate less.
Okay, good distinction. What's another one?
The idea that it's weak, that you need
No.
to be tough, critical, hard on yourself to survive or succeed.
The no pain, no gain applied to your inner life.
Exactly. But think about it. Turning towards your own pain, acknowledging it, and offering yourself kindness when every instinct might be to criticize or run away, that actually takes enormous courage and inner strength.
Hmm.
It's a source of resilience, not weakness. Some
Ah.
researchers call it the secret to resilience. It's about building fortitude, not being fragile.
So not weakness, but strength. What about that motivation one again? The fear it leads to complacency, laziness.
Still a huge one. That belief that self-criticism is the necessary fuel for achievement.
It keeps me on my toes.
Right. But as we discussed, the evidence shows self-compassion is a powerful motivator, one grounded in care and wanting to grow, not fear. It reduces the fear of failure, which actually makes you more likely to take initiative and persist. Self-criticism often just leads to procrastination or giving up.
So you're more likely to try if you know you won't beat yourself up if it doesn't work out perfectly.
Exactly. Then there's the myth that it's narcissistic or self-centered.
Which seems odd given the common humanity piece we just talked about.
It is counterintuitive once you understand it. Narcissism involves feeling superior.
Yeah.
Self-compassion is based on recognizing a shared imperfection. Again, research links self-esteem issues with narcissism, not self-compassion. Ironically, being constantly self-critical can be quite self-absorbed. Your focus is always on yourself and your perceived flaws.
That's a fascinating point.
Okay.
What about selfish? Is focusing on yourself selfish?
Another common concern, especially for caring people. If I spend time being kind to myself, am I neglecting others?
Yeah.
But again, it's the opposite. Taking care of your own emotional reserves through self-compassion actually boosts your ability to care for others. It prevents burnout. It replenishes you. Think of the oxygen mask analogy on airplanes.
Put your own mask on first before helping others.
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup. People high in self-compassion are often seen as more caring and empathetic.
Makes sense. Okay, last myth.
That it's self-indulgent, like it just means eating ice cream on the couch whenever you feel bad.
Giving yourself a free pass for everything?
Not at all. True self-compassion is about long-term well-being, not just short-term pleasure-seeking, especially if that pleasure harms you later. Remember, it's linked to healthier behaviors and better self-regulation. It involves acknowledging responsibility when you make mistakes, but doing so with kindness, so you can actually learn and change, not just avoid accountability or indulge in things that aren't truly good for you.
It feels like busting these myths is crucial. They seem like major roadblocks.
They really are. They often come from deep-seated beliefs or cultural messages. Understanding what self-compassion is and isn't is the first step to letting ourselves try it.
Okay, so we get it conceptually. We see the benefits. We've tackled the myths. Let's get practical. How do we actually do this? What are some simple, concrete things you can start doing today?
Great question. The good news is it is a skill, and like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. There are lots of accessible exercises, and even small, regular efforts really do add up.
Okay, give us some starting points.
A really fundamental one is the how would you treat a friend exercise. When you're struggling, first, just notice how you're talking to yourself internally. Then, imagine a good friend is going through the exact same thing. Really picture it. What would you say to them? What tone would you use? What would your posture be like?
Probably much kinder than how I'm talking to myself.
Almost certainly. So the final step is to consciously try to redirect that same kind, supportive response back towards yourself. It really highlights that often unconscious double standard.
That's powerful. Okay, what else?
Another great one, especially for in-the-moment use, is the self-compassion break.
How does that work?
When you notice you're having a hard time feeling stressed, upset, whatever, just pause. 3 steps. First, acknowledge the suffering mindfully. Silently say to yourself, okay, this is a moment of suffering, or ouch, this hurts. Just validating it.
Okay, step 1, mindfulness.
Step 2, connect with common humanity. Remind yourself suffering is part of life, or other people feel this way too, or I'm not alone.
Step 2,
Yeah.
common humanity.
Step 3, offer yourself kindness. You can put a hand on your heart or maybe your cheek and offer some kind words inwardly, like, may I be kind to myself, or may I give myself what I need right now.
Mindfulness, common humanity, self-kindness, all three pillars in one short break.
Exactly. It's portable, you can do it anywhere. Another really direct route is supportive touch.
Like putting your hand on your heart.
Yeah, or gently cradling your face, giving yourself a little hug, even just holding one hand with the other. Try breathing with the touch, noticing the warmth or pressure.
Why does touch work?
Physical touch directly taps into that mammalian caregiving system we talked about. It can trigger oxytocin release, calm the nervous system. It's a very primal way of signaling safety and care to your body.
Makes sense. We use it to soothe babies and friends.
So why not ourselves? Another big area is actively changing your critical self-talk.
Tackling that inner critic head on.
Yeah. First, just get better at noticing it. When does it show up? What's its usual script? Then acknowledge it without judgment, maybe even with a bit of curiosity. Oh, there's the critic again.
Okay.
Then gently question it. Is it really true? Is it helpful? And try to reframe it. How would that kind friend respond? Focus the reframed thought on encouragement, learning, support, not just harsh judgment. You can even use little phrases like, it's okay that I made a mistake.
So becoming aware, questioning, and consciously replacing it with a kinder, more realistic voice.
Exactly. Self-compassionate journaling is another great tool.
How's it different from regular journaling?
You intentionally bring the three components in, write about a difficult experience, but make sure to acknowledge the feelings mindfully, connect with how this is part of being human, and offer yourself words of kindness and understanding within the writing.
Like writing a compassionate letter to yourself about it.
Precisely. Or even writing to a younger version of yourself about a past struggle. It creates a space for processing with that compassionate lens.
That sounds really useful for digging a bit deeper.
And don't forget guided meditations. There are tons available now specifically for self-compassion.
Like loving kindness meditation.
Loving kindness, or metta, is a classic one. But there are others: affectionate breathing, compassionate body scans, meditations specifically for difficult emotions, visualizing a compassionate figure. Lots apps and websites have these.
So dedicated practice time.
Yeah, formal practice can really strengthen the muscle. And finally, just weaving mindful awareness into daily life.
How so?
Tiny pauses throughout the day. Check in. How am I feeling? Take 3 mindful breaths when you feel stressed. Do a quick body scan while waiting in line. Notice small moments of gratitude or pleasure. It makes the practice ongoing, integrated.
It really feels like many of these practices involve the body, not just the mind.
Absolutely. Self-compassion is deeply embodied. It engages our physiology, our soothing systems. That's why touch and breath are often involved. And the variety means you can try different things and see what clicks for you.
Okay, this all sounds great, but it's probably not always easy, right? I mentioned people hit roadblocks trying to actually do this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really crucial thing to acknowledge. The path isn't always linear, and internal barriers are very common. It's normal to struggle with this.
What kind of barriers do people run into?
Well, that ingrained self-criticism is a big one. It can feel so automatic, like it's just who you are. People might even believe they need it to function.
Right, the myths we talked about. Fear of weakness, complacency.
Exactly. Those fears of being weak, lazy, selfish, even fear of the vulnerability that comes with kindness. For some, just feeling positive, warm, affiliative emotions can feel unfamiliar or even unsafe, especially if they didn't experience much of that growing up.
Past experiences.
Definitely. Past experiences, insecure attachment histories. If kindness felt conditional or unreliable, it can be hard to trust it, even from yourself. You might have deep feelings of unworthiness. And then there are cultural messages, the emphasis on constant achievement, perfectionism, competition, being stoic.
Society doesn't always make it easy to be kind to yourself.
Not always, no. And sometimes when you first start practicing, you might hit what Kristen Neff calls backdraft.
Backdraft. Like in a fire.
Kind of. When you open the door to kindness, sometimes a lot of old, stored-up pain rushes out first. It can feel like things get worse before they get better. It means the kindness is reaching those wounded places, but it can be intense.
Oof. So it might not feel good immediately. That's important to know.
Very important. It requires patience, gentleness.
So how do you navigate these challenges if you hit resistance or backdraft?
First, just like with difficult emotions, try to be mindfully aware of the resistance itself. Notice it without judging yourself for having it. Okay, this feels hard right now.
Acknowledge the struggle with the practice itself.
Yes. Then, gently challenge the beliefs underneath. Is it really true that you'll fall apart without self-criticism? Maybe do small experiments, try kindness in a low-stakes situation and see what actually happens. Be patient. Titrate. Start small. If it feels overwhelming, pull back a bit. Focus on grounding. Remember, the intention is kindness, even if the feeling isn't there yet. That intention matters.
And seeking support.
Absolutely. Talk to trusted people. Consider therapy, especially if deep-seated patterns or trauma are involved. Structured programs like Mindful Self-Compassion, MSC, are designed specifically to guide people through these challenges.
You mentioned attachment history earlier. Can you say a bit more about how that plays into this?
Sure, our early relationships shape our internal working models, how we expect relationships to be, how worthy of care we feel. If early caregivers were consistently responsive and kind, it's generally easier to internalize that and offer it to ourselves. That secure attachment, often linked to higher
And
self-compassion.
if they weren't?
If care was inconsistent, critical, or neglectful, insecure attachment, it can leave us feeling unworthy, distrustful of kindness, or finding it hard to soothe ourselves. We might replicate those critical patterns internally. Research does show insecure attachment correlating with lower self-compassion.
So for some people, working on those deeper attachment patterns might be part of the journey.
It can be, yes. Therapy focused on attachment can be really helpful alongside self-compassion practice. It's about learning to provide yourself with that secure base you might not have fully received.
Like learning to reparent yourself compassionately.
That's a great way to think about it. And one final thought on the inner critic. Sometimes it helps to reframe it. Instead
Mm.
of just seeing it as this enemy, try to understand its intention, however misguided. Often, the critic developed as a way to protect you, maybe from others' judgment or from making mistakes. It wants you to be safe or successful. It just goes about it in a harsh, unhelpful way.
So it thinks it's helping.
In its own distorted way, perhaps. Acknowledging that positive intention doesn't excuse the harshness, but it can soften your relationship to it. Then you can say, okay, I see you're trying to help, but this isn't working. Let's try a kinder way, self-compassion, to achieve well-being.
That feels like a much more constructive approach than just fighting it all the time.
It can be. So ultimately, self-compassion really is this powerful, research-backed alternative to that inner struggle so many of us live with.
Offering kindness instead of criticism, recognizing we're all in this together and staying present with our experience.
Exactly. And the benefits really ripple out: greater well-being, resilience, better relationships, maybe even better health.
And it's crucial to remember it's not self-esteem, not self-pity, not weak, not selfish, not lazy, not self-indulgent. We busted those myths.
Hopefully. And the key is it's a skill you can learn. You can practice it.
Using those tools we talked about, treating yourself like a friend, the self-compassion break, supportive touch, changing self-talk, journaling, meditation.
Finding what works for you. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. Just consider, what would change if you consistently offered yourself the same understanding and kindness you'd readily give to a friend or loved one? How might that shift your inner world, your experience of life?
What's one small act of self-compassion you could try today?